Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock Saturday, and for the very best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI, Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay, and behind the big board is the producer's producer, Greg Held. Clay, great show with Rudy Salas, Democratic candidate for the 32nd Assembly District last week. We had a little bit of controversy with one of his answers, but...
Well, I was really proud to have Rudy on. First off, glad he came. And secondly, he really proved why we need Pedro Rios.
I like that. Our second guest was Doug Johnson, author of No Tomorrows. He was a great guest talking about the Middle East. And if you want a copy of his book, I have one left. You can email me at payinsurance@hotmail.com, and you're more than welcome to have that book. Today we've got a fantastic show. In the second half we have Ted Fowler, a former GM dealer and stockholder, to talk about what really happened in the GM bailout. You're going to be very, very fascinated with that interview. But our first guest is a man who's been on my bucket list of people I'd like to interview for a long, long time. The Milton Friedman Senior Fellow on Public Policy at the Hoover Institute, Stanford University. He's taught economics at UCLA. I wish it was USC, but I guess we'll have to settle for UCLA. Cornell, author, syndicated columnist, Dr. Thomas Sowell. Dr. Sowell, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Hi, good to be with you.
So you have a great pamphlet we got in the mail talking about trickle-down theory and the tax cuts for the rich. This is not a new concept, is it?
Oh, no, this kind of argument has been made back and forth for decades. In fact, you can actually go back to William Jennings Bryan's Cross of Gold speech in 1896 to see the idea outlined there that people think that if you give more to the rich, that the benefits will trickle down. I have never in all my life come across one person who ever actually said any such thing. I've come across innumerable people who claim that somebody else has said it, but they can never name that somebody else.
So there really is no trickle-down theory per se?
No, there isn't.
Okay. But then again, when tax rates go down, revenues go up. And again, in your little pamphlet here, you've shown that for the last 80 years through 4 different administrations. And why isn't that accepted today?
I think the reasons are all political. In fact, back in 2008 during the political campaign, then Senator Barack Obama was interviewed by Charles Gibson, who pointed out to him that raising tax rates does not bring more revenue into the government automatically. It may or it may not, depending on the circumstances. But that he then pointed out, that when the capital gains tax rates were cut back in the 1990s, the capital gains revenue rose substantially. The reason being that when the tax rates are very high, people with lots of income are likely to invest that money in tax-exempt securities or put it in other tax shelters. When the rate comes down, they bring it out again, invest it in the private economy where they can get more money, and then that investment creates more economic activity, jobs, and ultimately tax revenue for the government.
This has been what has happened year in and year out since the 1900s.
Well, it's happened in a number of administrations, beginning with Coolidge, then John F. Kennedy, then Ronald Reagan, and finally George W. Bush.
You gave a great example in your little pamphlet about, I think it was during the 1920s when you were looking at tax rates and what it did to the number of people making over $1 million. Oh, this is in the 1960s, I'm sorry. 1916, there was over 200 people making over $100 million, or no, I'm sorry.
100,000.
No, $1 million a year. And that number went down to 17 because of tax policies in 1921. They lowered the tax rate. All of a sudden, it went back up to over 200 people in 1925, and the tax revenues that went into the coffers doubled.
Yes. And it wasn't that their incomes went down. It was back in those days, you only had to report taxable income. So when people started putting their money in tax shelters, then suddenly all these people who had been making huge sums of money, especially in the money of that time, they suddenly disappeared into thin air. And nobody believed that the rich had suddenly become poor, that the rich had suddenly become smart. They put their money in tax-exempt securities. And so instead of collecting a small tax much lower tax rate, the government collected no taxes at all from them.
You know, it's funny, when I received the pamphlet in the mail, the next day the French decided to, quote, tax the super rich at 75%. Again, it's obviously political, but they don't get it. A lot of our free market or supposedly free market allies don't get it either.
That's true. That I have not seen a refutation of this tax cuts for the rich argument from any leading Republican candidate for anything. The irony in France is that when you realize the English Channel is only 20 miles across, any rich person in France can suddenly become a rich person in England, where the tax rates are lower.
Sure. Now, you just you made a comment. You said there's no Republican candidate that you know of.
That's right.
That's espousing this.
That's answered it. I mean, I'm sure they may know it and so on. One of the sad things that happens is that some people seem to think that if a certain idea is fallacious, then there's no need for them to bother to answer it. And no, many fallacious ideas have come into being and not only destroyed whole economies, but have ended up killing millions of people. So I think that you do need to answer silly arguments.
Our guest by phone, author, columnist, Dr. Thomas Sowell. So, unfortunately, we're teaching the opposite too. You made the argument about some of the textbooks over the last 20 years are really wrong in how they're teaching how the economy really works.
Absolutely. Probably the worst offender is Arthur Schlesinger Jr., who has been the big cheerleader for the idea that Franklin D. Roosevelt saved the American economy in the 30s. And at some other point, Schlesinger said admitted he had no real interest in economics. Well, if you don't have any interest in economics, you shouldn't be spreading economic conclusions. And of course, people who are economists have questioned seriously not only whether Roosevelt saved the economy, but whether he did not artificially prolong the Depression by misguided policies.
Well, we've seen the same situation with newspapers over the years with reporters.
Oh, absolutely.
They tend to just take what their Democratic Party or Republican Party tells them, and they just put it in writing without any research, without any background, without any history.
Absolutely. Some years ago, there was a school of journalism that was approaching me as to whether I wanted to become a dean of the school of journalism. And, of course, I didn't. But I thought, if I were to become the dean of a school of journalism, the first thing I would do would insist that all the students have a year of statistics and a year of economics, so they wouldn't be so gullible about so many things.
Dr. Sowell, I got to tell you, I went back a couple years ago to get my master's, and I think a year of statistics would have just really sank my boat. That was one class that I did not, I did okay in it, but I didn't really enjoy it. It just was kind of beyond me.
Well, no, statistics is not meant to be a consumer good. It's meant to be a capital investment.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm one of those people that really believe that what got us out of the Depression was World War II, not Roosevelt's policies, because if you look at his policies 4 or 5 years into him, it actually made unemployment worse, not better.
Oh, the other thing that gets me is that people, many Republicans or conservatives, seem to think that if the economy is bad, that means Obama can't be reelected. The economy was worse under FDR than it's ever been under Obama, and he was elected in a record landslide in 1936. There was not a single month during his first term of office when unemployment was not in double digits, and there were a number of months when it was over 20%. But he was elected. He won 46 out of the 48 states at that time.
Well, I don't want to get too far away from your book, but do you think with the economy the way it is, President Obama can be reelected?
Absolutely. I mean, if the FDR was elected 4 times, and in the first 2 terms, unemployment was in double digits every single month.
It's fascinating to me because when you think about trickle-down, you think about conservatives, but it's not really a conservative idea because you're looking at people like President Woodrow Wilson, President John F. Kennedy. Here you've got two presidents that are not conservative by any stretch of the imagination, and they both believed in trickle-down. And
well, not trickle-down.
Well, I'm sorry,
they believe that you cut taxes.
Cut taxes for the
that
rich.
That would change
right.
the behavior of investors.
Right, right. And yet they're not conservative, but, this is supposedly a conservative concept.
Well, as I mentioned in the tax paper, John Maynard Keynes in 1933 said, that if you were to cut the tax rates, you have a better chance of balancing the budget in the long run than if you raise them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is actually true. But yet we've got people that are, touting the exact opposite today, and it's not working. That's the crazy thing.
Well, it's working for them. It's working politically, which is the only thing that matters to them if they're politicians.
Yeah.
The purpose, I don't believe for 1 minute that Barack Obama is worried about getting more revenue for the government. He's worried about getting more votes for himself in November. And if painting the Republicans as defenders of the rich and himself as the champion of the middle class and the working class gets across his message and he gets the votes, then it's been a success in the only terms that matter to him.
Mm-hmm. When we come back, we'll keep on talking about the trickle-down theory and tax cuts for the rich with Dr. Thomas Sowell. We'll be back on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio News Talk 1180.